Anyway, the Star of David, incidentally, is not called the Star of David. The Star of David is, the idea of the Star of David was just only a couple hundred years old. But that six-pointed star is a hexagram, and it's called the Star of Saturn. It was called Saturn's Star. So that's an interesting, I think I've got some of that on here anyway. So the idea is that there's so much stuff that's hidden right in plain sight that people don't see. Like, for instance, and some of you may have seen some of this already, possibly, but Abydos temple in Egypt. In the temple of Egypt, Abydos, these big pylons, and incidentally the pylons, these big pillars that hold up the temples, were all phallic pillars. But on one of these cross member pieces in the Abydos temple, you may have seen this, looks like an exact representation of a helicopter. Yeah.
Is there a jet in there too?
Yeah, and then next to it,
Looks like an automobile.
I've
never seen this.
when I hear people talking about the pyramids of Egypt were designed as burial tombs for the pharaohs, I'm just amazed that a grown person would say something that stupid. And something so obviously stupid as that they built a whole damn pyramid as a burial tomb, when in point of fact, if you've got 500 brain cells all going in one direction, you remember in school that the pharaohs were buried 25 miles south of the pyramids, called the Valley of the Kings.
Yes.
That's where the pharaohs were buried, in the Valley of the Kings, not in a pyramid. And something else, all over Egypt, I've been through all of Egypt 3 times, and all over Egypt, everything the Egyptians did, they put hieroglyphics on. They wrote stuff on all their temples, everything, every place, every temple, everything in Egypt. The ancient Egyptians wrote something on their temples, except one place. In the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, there is nothing written about anything, nothing. And in all of Egypt, all of their ancient writings of all of Egypt, all the ancient writings, there's not one discussion in all of Egypt about a pyramid. So I don't know what that tells you. Except that they haven't told us who really created the pyramids. The Egyptians obviously didn't do it, because they would have said something. But they said zero, nothing in Egypt about a pyramid. Anyway, let's go on. So, Bacchus Dionysus, sometimes used to represent the devil in Christianity. Well, we talked about Bacchus Dionysus in the very first picture. Bacchus was a Greek god of grapes and wine and parties and drunkenness. But he also had horns, so sometimes he was pictured, the Christians have used him in the past as a symbol for the devil. There's actually a Greek god named Bacchus Dionysus, the ancient god of wine and drunken orgy. Here in one of the reference books it says Bacchus, the Roman god of wine. Bacchus is well known as the god of grape harvest, the grape harvest. So many times you'll see Bacchus with grapes all around him, with the pointed ears, demon, devil, but what grapes. So Bacchus Dionysus, the Greek god of grapes, wines, drunkenness. You see him everywhere holding grapes. Well, even in Disney cartoons. Now again, Bacchus is the ancient god of wine and grapes. And here again it says, Bacchus is well known as the god of the grape harvest. This is why you'll see all kinds of pictures with Jesus with grapes around him, because Jesus also is Jesus is Bacchus Dionysus, but it's just a Roman interpretation of the Greek god. So Jesus is also connected to the worship of Bacchus Dionysus. That's why the priests have the wine and the ceremonies in the church. Here's Jesus hanging in the orchard with all the grapes. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here with the story of Christianity and Jesus and Bacchus and wine drinking and drunkenness and sex, drugs, and money and rock and roll. And this stuff is everywhere, but people have no idea what they're looking at. Here's the Virgin Mother with Jesus with grapes. Mysterious relationship. So always you see what Jesus and his mother. And this is why, incidentally, Jesus is born of a virgin. Because one of the 12 signs of the zodiac is Virgo, the virgin. So one of the 12 apostles was a female. You had to have a female because one of the 12 signs of the zodiac is Virgo. Virgo, the virgin. So that's why you have Virgo, the virgin, connected to Bacchus Dionysus, the god of grapes. So all over Europe you see these paintings with Jesus and his mother and the grapes. So he's had so many grapes here they're growing out of his side. But so just understand that the worship of Jesus is connected to a Greek god of wine and drunkenness and revelry. The body of Christ. Everywhere you see things about Jesus, you'll always see the grapes. Now, even the Passover is connected to Bacchus Dionysus. At the synagogue, you see the Star of David and Bacchus Dionysus in the Star of David. Also, Bacchus was the god of ancient wine, drunks, and laughter. Laughter was always connected to drunkenness and parties. So he was also the god of wine, drunks, and laughter. It says at the top, it says the god of wine, Bacchus, presided over festivities, jovial and laughing. Obviously, this is why they always have Jesus laughing. I think the joke is on the Christian. Let's put it that way. Yeah. They put out books and magazines called Holy Laughter. So in churches, they got this demonic depravity thing of where they all get seized with the laughter. It's called the Toronto Blessing, the Pensacola Blessing. My hometown is very famous for this kind of silliness. Christians sit in church all day long and laugh. Bacchus Dionysus, the god of drunkenness, grapes, and laughing. So much for that nonsense. I mean, it really is an incredible display of stupidity and infantile, dim-witted stuff that you see on TBN and on television. Christian broadcasting is absolutely ludicrous on the face of it. Stuff that goes on. You ever wonder why the Pope kisses the earth?
I mean, it's his land.
Yeah. Yeah. The Pope kisses the earth, always. The reason why is because he's kissing the earth that he owns. God has given him the earth and everything on it. That's what the Pope believes. That's what the papacy teaches. The Vatican teaches that the Pope is the owner. He is the vicar of Christ. And the idea is that God has given the earth to Jesus, his son. But since Jesus is not here right now, and somebody has to be in charge of the property that belongs to Jesus. So the word is vicar of Christ, meaning the one who stands in for Christ. So the Pope is standing in for Jesus. Jesus owns the earth, but he's not here right now. So the Pope will run the earth for him. If you've got a problem with that, you can speak up. Yeah, they all very much a part of this. They understand.
Intermarried to power.
Yeah, that's a whole story there. But anyway, have you ever heard of Dagon?
Yes.
God
Sargon.
Dagon. Dagon was an old Phoenician Canaanite god. He was a fish god. So the Pope's headdress, the Pope's mitre, it's called the Pope's mitre, but it has to do with the god Dagon. So that hat Pope wears represents Dagon, a fish god. The Pope wears the fish head of Dagon, the fish god. Here it is. Dagon was the god of the Philistines, half man, half fish. Catholic Encyclopedia has all kinds of articles about Dagon, the fish god. There's an old ancient drawing of the fish god, Dagon. Another one, Mesopotamian sculptor, the priest wearing a fish head mitres. You see, the priest of the Philistines were wearing a fish head. Pagan priest, and they're sprinkling holy water. Well, it's another thing that the priests do, sprinkling holy water. So here's some beautiful color pictures of the priest of Dagon wearing the fish symbolism. Here's the Pope's mitre. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Pope's mitre, but laying it on its side, you'll see on the right-hand side, it's a fish head. I mean, can you imagine that? People all around the world coming to bow before the Pope and kiss his ring with this chump wearing a fish head?
Wasn't Dagon from the stars?
That's interesting too. I just think it's incredible.
That fish head was really his astronaut suit?
There it is again, the fish head. So that's what the Catholic Church is built on, the worship of an old Phoenician Canaanite Philistine god called Dagon. Yeah.
The Christian religion used the symbol of the fish.
Say it again?
The Christian religion used the symbol of the fish.
That's right.
Can I ask a question?
Well, say goodbye to Dagon.
Doesn't it have to do with Pisces, the constellation?
Right.
So is that what Dagon is too?
That's right. The Pisces, we are living in the age of Pisces, the fish god. So say goodbye to the fish god. Hurricane, after Katrina, the second big hurricane that came in after Katrina, I thought it was interesting. I went on the computer to the United Weather Service. They were showing from the space shuttle a picture of the hurricane that came in after Katrina. It was the second big one. And in the middle of that hurricane was a cloud formation. Looks like a number 2. You ever wondered why a cloud formation would be made into a symbol of a 2 inside of a hurricane? Who knows? I just thought it was interesting. Something's going on. I mean, Nick, Colonel Tom Bearden, damn, 25 years ago, Colonel Tom Bearden was talking about, what is that, Tesla technology?
Scalar wave.
What's his term they use? Scalar science, where they're using high science to manipulate the weather, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes that can cause anywhere in the world. That's a whole story in itself. Anyway, the Star of David on the Israel flag. 6-pointed star. The sheriffs always wore a 6-pointed star. 6-pointed stars also on the American dollar bill. You see above the eagle's head, there's 13 stars, and the configuration of the 13 stars on the dollar bill are made up into a Star of David over the top of the eagle. Incidentally, the eagle only has All ancient nations of the world used an eagle. All of them. Rome, Greece, Babylonians, Egyptians, all the ancient cultures of the world always, for national symbols, used an eagle. Why? Because eagles always represented the highest power in the universe, the sun. Because it can fly high and sees everything. But eagles only have two wings, a left wing and right wing. That's where we get our ideas of the two-party system, left wing and right wing politics. That's because the eagle only has two wings, left wing and right wing. But the eagle has one brain in the middle controlling both wings. You can't fly anywhere with one wing. You've got to have a two-party system. All of this stuff is right in front of you, but most people don't see it. Anyway, Star of David on the dollar bill. Ancient Hebrews represented saffron with a six-pointed star, which later became known as the Star of David. So that six-pointed star is a hexagram. And so the six-pointed star represents a hex. That's why it's always amazed me. You see people running around with the Star of David around the neck. They'll say, you've got the hex put on you. That's where we get the idea of putting the hex on somebody. Because the Babylonians used to draw a circle and on the circle on the ground and draw a triangle within it, and then into another triangle inverted. So you got a six-pointed star inside of a circle, and stand inside the six-pointed star and cast spells on people. And that's what we get the idea of putting the hex on you. And so today we have people running around with the Star of David hanging around their neck and just putting the hex on you. It's an incredible story of words and terms and how these symbols work. The ancient Hebrew god Saffron. Now there's a very big subject. Saffron as a god. Saffron was always referred to in the ancient world as Lord of the Rings. And they're still making movies in Hollywood, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a Jewish story about occult Judaism. That's what the whole story is about. The occult dark forces of the religion of Saffron. So here's an article. I got about 40 or 50 different articles and reference works around the world on this whole idea of Saffron being the old ancient god of the Sumerian peoples, the Semitic peoples. Saffron. Incidentally, that Star of Saffron, which is a six-pointed hexagram, when you take the six-pointed hexagram, and there you'll see Yahweh Elohim is the name of God in Hebrew, and then you'll see the symbol, the astronomical symbol for the planet Saffron in the middle. And then beneath it, in the Phoenician language, the word saffron was spelled Shabbati. Shabbati is an ancient way of designating the planet Saffron. So from Shabbati we got Shabbat, and Shabbat gives us the word Sabbath. So today, when you talk about keeping the Sabbath holy, it's keeping the day of Saffron holy. That's why the Hebrews have Sabbath on Friday night after sundown. Because all the holy days in the Hebrew calendar are always after sundown. Why? Because that's when the moon comes out, after sundown. And Sin, a god, the moon comes out after sundown. So that's why all holy days are after sundown. Why? Because when the sun is out, that's Christians. Christians are worshiping the sun. But the Hebrews worship the moon, Sin. And they also eventually got into Saturn worship. But if you see the inside of a six-pointed star, hexagram, becomes a hexagon. It's a six-sided hexagon. Hexagons, there's a hexagon on the planet Saffron.
That's right. There it is.
Fascinating. On the planet Saffron, there's actually a hexagon in the north pole of Saturn.
There's a video, yeah.
And the scientists have no idea in the world, why is there a hexagram on the north pole of Saturn? I just think that's real interesting.
It's the dynamics of the aeronautical
Yeah, well,
turbulence.
there's a scientific reason, but how is it that what we call the Hebrew people use the planet Saturn as one of their gods, wearing the hex on them, the six-pointed star, and yet the very planet Saturn has a hex on it too?
How did they know it 2,000 years ago?
I know. How did they know that? How did they know that?
Dagon told them.
Who knows? So again, Yahweh is the planet Saturn, and Saturn was Shabbati or Shabbat or Sabbath. So when you hear the Christian, goofy, airhead, dingback Christian preachers on TV talking about keeping the holy Sabbath. Sabbath is the worship of Saturn, airhead. It's just incredible. People, they're leading people into this pagan worship of the planet Saturn and planet Mars and all of this silly nonsense, and the people think it's holy. And as I've said so many times, there's nothing holy in Israel. The only thing holy in Israel are the stories that come out of it. They're full of holes. The whole thing is holes. Doesn't hold water. And even the popes, a particular hat that the Pope wears is called his Saturnian hat. It's named the Saturn hat after the planet Saturn. A lot of people don't know that. The Pope wears a hat called the Saturnian hat. Here is a airport in Iran, an Iranian airport in which they have a Jewish Star of David on the airport in Iran. What's all that about? I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff going on in politics and religion that we are not being told. But these are little indicators of how deep this rabbit hole really goes. Something big is going on that we're not being told. We always talk about our White House. Of course, it's a White House. You didn't say it was a black house or brown, it's a White House. Why is it called a White House? Well, I don't know if you know this, but after the Soviet Union fell, the new government became known, the center of government for Russia. After the Soviet Union fell, the new government in Russia changed the name of the government building to the White House. So now in Russia today, they rule Russia from the White House. So the Russians have a White House now too. There it is, Russian White House. So we have a White House, so the Russians. Well, yeah, well, they're still communist over there. They're fascist, but they're still communists. Well, that's all right, because we're communists too, so we got
We're fascists too.
Yeah, we're fascists too. There's nothing wrong, it's just business, for God's sake. So, and while we're at it, red, white, and blue. This whole idea about red, white, and blue. First of all, the idea of red, white, and blue goes back to the great Temple of Solomon, supposedly. Solomon had a temple. But in the Bible, Old Testament, it said that the colors that were used in Solomon's temple was red, white, and blue. That's why the French used those colors, red, white, and blue, because of the Old Testament connection. You know, this is why, if you remember in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, who was looking for the Lost Ark? Indiana Jones. But also the Nazis were looking for the Lost Ark. And who was leading the Nazis looking for the Lost Ark? Who was the leader of the Nazis? It was a Frenchman, remember? A French archaeologist. And he was the authority over the Nazis. Which is exactly right, because the French Grand Orient Temple Masons were the people who came up with the idea of Zionism. And Zionism is a Nazi movement. And so even Steven Spielberg was showing you the connections between the French Grand Orient Temple Masons, the French scientist, archaeologist who was leading the Nazis. Remember in the movie there was a Frenchman who was the authority for the Nazis, and they were doing what he told them to do? So there's a big connection between France, the Grand Orient Temple Masons of France, Nazism, and Zionism. That's a whole other story. But that but it shows you that even Steven Spielberg is trying to tell you something in the movies. I sat in Steven Spielberg's private office over at the SKG Studios in Glendale. I was invited there by the lady who was in charge of his research department. And I talked with her on the phone, and so I brought my resume over and sat and talked with her. And she was a nice lady from England. And her and her husband, who's passed away now, the two of them, the lady and her husband from England, Spielberg made them in charge of his private personal library at SKG Studios. He has his own personal library. But they were also in charge of research for his movies. And she told me that Steven Spielberg is extremely deliberate about making sure everything in the movie that he does is exactly correct. Exactly correct. Whatever he pictures in his movies, and old dress and old costumes or whatever, and concepts and ideas in his movies, those are exactly correct. She said, because he was a stickler for that. He does not want people saying, well, you made a mistake. Well, so-and-so didn't, those people didn't wear that kind of, they didn't wear that kind of clothing, or they didn't believe this or that. No. If it's in Steven Spielberg's movies, they did the research and they know what they're doing. So if it's in his movies, he's exactly correct on his, the times that people, what they wore, what they were thinking, the way they acted. I just thought that was interesting. But the red, white, and blue. Well, and the Russian flag is now red, white, and blue. So it's keeping it all in the family. The new Russian ambassador, red, white, and blue flag for the new Russia, which is actually taken from the Old Testament and the Bible, as I said, in the Psalm. So we have two countries now with two White Houses, two red, white, and blue flags. And what I'm doing on this presentation is just giving you a hodgepodge of all kinds of symbols and stuff that we see every day and never realize there's a connection behind all of it. That's all I'm doing. Nothing is specific. I'm just giving you some ideas about how symbols are used. The Rotary Club. Everybody's heard of the Rotary Club. Supposedly it's a big international business deal, and you're very important if you become a member of the Rotary Club. Well, we found out that Rotary Club was actually connected to Nazism. Yeah. And also, in the middle, the Rotary was also connected to communism. Why? It's because the Rotary Club is just one of many, many organizations which is devoted to the promotion of and the protection of world commerce, world business. Well, who is in charge of world business if it's not the damn Illuminati and international bankers? No wonder the communists use it, the Nazis use it, international bankers use it, Americans use it. Rotary is a symbol for the sun, the round sun with the spokes of the sunburst. The Rotary is a sun symbol of the Knights Templars. It's used by communists, Nazis, Americans, fascists, all over the world, the Rotary. So that's why I'm not impressed with people who are members of the Rotary Club.
They're in the schools too, they have clubs.
Say it again?
They're in the public schools, they have clubs. The Rotary Club, they sponsor.
Yeah.
Key Club, it's called.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you something right there. Nazis on the left-hand side and the communist symbol on the right-hand side. Nazis and the communists use the same symbols. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm doing a whole new video on. It's going to be called the Gemini Club. It's going to be a whole 2-hour thing, which I'm working on right now. It's probably going to be the most controversial thing I've done so far. It's called the Gemini Club, showing that the communists and the Nazis and the Vatican are all one and the same. They use the same words, the same terms, the same money, the same connections, the same people. It's all one operation. Vatican, communism, Nazism, all three. Triune God.
Here we call them Democrats and Republicans, right?
Prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. is Nazi communists used the same symbols. Now Hitler, of course, used the symbol of the sun. The swastika was a symbol for the sun. The old Etruscans were the ones that gave us the swastika. There's a medallion with the swastika. The Etruscans are the people we call the early Italians. They were the early Romans. They were called Etruscans, and they gave us this concept of in Europe of the swastika. But the swastika obviously goes way back into the ancient world. The Hindus had the swastika everywhere. But for the Roman Empire, it was the Etruscans who brought it into the Roman Empire. And here it is, ancient Roman mosaics on the ancient Roman floors from swastikas. Here it is in the Vatican. Papal mitre with a swastika. To tell you something that's going on there. Here's a bishop, Los Angeles newspaper, and on the papal mitre he's got a swastika. I mean, this stuff is right in your face. Here's the Pope. Look at the look on his face.
Your children.
George, is the swastika also a sign of the Ash constellation?
Yeah.
With the Ashkenazi Jews?
Yeah. That's another one. Now, what's interesting is that the tetragrammaton, which is the 4 Hebrew letters which make up the name of God, and the old Kabbalistic system is the Hebrew name of God, tetragrammaton, is connected directly to the sun. It's the sun worship. And the sun in the ancient religion of the Phoenician Canaanites, which was picked up by the Knights Templars and put into Judaism in the 9th, 10th century, the tetragrammaton name of God is the 4 Hebrew letters. When you connect them at their base, you will see on the second line forms a swastika. So that the swastika is actually the symbol for the sun. Well, that's what tetragrammaton was. The name of God was the 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet connected together, and Yahweh was the sun god. So when you start going back into the ancient history of the swastika, and you find out that the ancient Phoenicians, Canaanites, Sumerians, the ancient peoples of the world connected the symbols of the old Phoenician alphabet to the sun. It becomes known as a swastika. So what I'm saying is the Hebrew swastika represents the sun. It talks about the ancient Hebrew swastika in the sun. Why? Because the name of God, when connected correctly, the way the Kabbalists do it, the name of God, tetragrammaton, the 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet for God, connects it to the swastika. So that's what I'm saying, that Adolf Hitler, there's a big story behind Hitler, who Hitler really was, and who the Nazis really were, and how this all connects to something that's far, far more ancient, has nothing to do with Jewish at all. There's a big story going on in the world that most people are not aware of. It has nothing to do with the Jewish, and the Nazis were not who you think they were, the communists are not who you think they were, and for damn sure America is not who you think it is. None of this stuff is known by people around the world. And so I hear, and I've talked to people at these studios, the rabbis at the studios. I said, you're talking about the Shoah and the Holocaust and all these things. Are you aware that they're very swastika of Hitler as a Jewish symbol, for God's sake? Have you ever done any research? I don't know if you've ever sat and you got a book or something. For God's sake, it's about time you wake up and find out where this stuff really comes from. It's very, very deep. The rabbit hole is very deep. And it's the kind of thing that if you don't spend your whole life doing this kind of research, and most people don't have time. I made the time, and I'm fascinated with what you come up with. Here it is. It's called the tetragrammaton. There's a tetragrammaton in the Byzantine church. Tetragrammaton, the symbol for God. What is it? Swastika. Yeah. And that's why you'll find in a lot of the old synagogues in ancient Israel. There are synagogues in ancient Israel, synagogues in Israel today, which have on the floor swastikas. But Netanyahu and the Zionists don't talk about that. It's not important, so they don't bring that up. That the very symbol for Nazis and Hitler was a swastika, which comes from Israel. There it is again. Star of David with the swastika. No, I'm just saying there's a big story here that people are not being told. Here's a Jewish guy wearing a swastika on his. And now here's interesting. The Soviet Union, under communism, the Soviet Union symbol was a swastika. There it is, on a passport. The Soviet passport with a swastika. So, you know, we know the Nazis use a swastika. No, the communists also use a swastika. Here is the money printed under the Soviet Union, money. And on it you'll see the double head of the double eagle head. But behind the eagle, can you see the swastika? So what is a swastika, supposedly Nazi swastika, doing on Soviet communist money? It's because Soviet communist money, like Nazi money, like American money, goes back to Knights Templars, goes back to Pirates of the Caribbean, and goes back to secret societies and fraternal orders that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years that we don't know anything about. And they're the same people who finance Russia, or the same people who are financing America, or the same people who finance Adolf Hitler, and they're the same people who we today call the Vatican. All of this stuff goes back to ancient sun worship, ancient stuff. And here it is again. You'll see the swastika on the Russian money, a swastika on Russian passports, and of course Hitler. Fascinating stuff, I think. There it is again, another $5,000 bill in Russia with the swastika on it. So, you got to ask the question: Why do all these different powerful political powers in the world use the same symbols?
The same people.
The same club.
People. The hammer and sickle. Soviet Union's famous hammer and sickle. So that's another symbol that the communists use, the hammer and sickle. Well, you'll see on the bottom, there's a swastika. This was German. The Nazis also used the hammer and sickle, just by chance. Another coincidence, you'll see the eagle, the American, the Roman eagle, American eagle, the Nazi eagle. It only had two wings, that wing and right wing, communist wing and Nazi. It's all the same operation. Austria, on the right-hand side, I think that's the national coat of arms for Austria. You'll see the eagle is holding the hammer and the sickle. So, in Russia today, they've got the red, white, and black. It's called death head colors. And Hollywood calls it death head colors. Anytime something happens in a Hollywood movie, usually they will have it in red, white, and black. It's called death head colors in Hollywood. Death head colors are red, white, and black. Groove spears. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but in South Africa, when they were digging mines, they go so far down into the earth, miles down into the earth, mining. They go through strata, which is 2 to 3 billion years old, that far down. And all archaeologists and paleontologists agree that that far down, that particular strata that they were going through in South Africa was 2 to 3 billion years old. That's how old that strata is in the earth. But what's interesting is what they found in that strata. They found little steel spears or balls with a cut around the perimeter and a little circle, and that was found in the earth miles and miles down in strata, which is 2 to 3 to 4 billion years old, which means that somebody was on this earth that had the ability to create round steel balls and cut them and put circles on them 3 billion years ago. And what does that mean? I don't know what it means. I just think it's interesting. Yeah. And then when you look at one of the moons, here's another picture of it. But there were thousands of these little things found in strata, which is 3 billion years old. I am totally convinced for myself that there has been extraordinarily high otherworld civilizations. I'd say otherworld meaning far superior to anything we humans have come up with. Ancient civilizations have been on this earth billions of years ago. Extremely high civilizations that had knowledge of nuclear, space flight, all kinds of off-the-wall strange stuff that, the words of Atlantis, the lost continent moon. I am totally sure that we haven't been told a half of what's been going on this earth for the last 3 billion years that you haven't been told. And all that silly nonsense about the pyramids being the burial tombs of pharaohs. So you better go back and do some homework. The whole earth has got a history we've never even heard of before. I'm just showing you. And now there's a moon. I think this moon is one of the moons of Saturn. I just think it's interesting. Kind of like the same.
That's off of Mars, I think.
Is that what it is? One of the moons of Mars, yeah. The Death Star.
The Death Star. Whoa.
Yeah. Incidentally, there was a photograph. I've lost it. I got to find it again. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my whole life. What's the name of the company? Polaroid. The Polaroid film company, camera company, made a special camera, a Polaroid camera that was connected to an electronic microscope. And it was one piece of equipment, and they put it on one of the space shuttles so that they could zoom in on their subject at 25,000 power, 25,000 times, and zoom in on it and take pictures with a Polaroid camera on the space shuttle so they could see what certain superstructure looks like without gravity. And so they took pictures of metal. They took little pieces and slivers of metal and put it under that microscope on the space shuttle where there's no gravity, and they photographed the metal at 25,000 power, 25,000 times. And the pictures came back astonishing. What metal looks like at 25,000 times magnified in space was nothing but millions and millions of little four-sided pyramids with a little circle at the top. All four sides of the little circle at the top of a pyramid. Four-sided pyramids, millions and millions of little pyramids, all of four-sided pyramids with a little circle at the top. And that is the superstructure of metal at 25,000. So that's metal magnified 25,000 times are pyramids. Perfectly formed four-sided pyramids with a little eye at the top. I don't know what that means.
Tetrahedrons.
But I'm telling you, that's scary stuff. Because when you begin to understand that the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill has the eye at the top, that's the superstructure of metal without gravity. It also is a very important symbol in Judaism and in the ancient Masonic world. All of this stuff implies that there's something else, there's a higher knowledge going on that we're not being told. So the moon, the Death Star, those little metal containers, little metal spheres, all very interesting stuff. So, ancient Roman and Nazi salute. Adolf Hitler with his straight arm salute. The Arnold The Romans, ancient Rome. There's Adolf Hitler in the Vatican, hanging out with the Pope. Yeah, Hitler was connected directly to the Vatican. And here in the Vatican, the priest, new priests, all take the legion. You see with the raised hand.
They do away with that in the 1950s here in America?
Something like that, yeah, 53, something like that. Here's a famous Nazi SS Gestapo meeting the Holy Father. He's supposedly a president of the United States, representing the American people, and he's over there bowing down before an emperor. Bowing before the emperor. At least Obama bows down before the Saudi Arabians. At least they got Nazism. There you go. The top you'll see was Hitler's youth. Beneath you'll see American children. This is the way American children used to salute the flag.
Whoa.
Before World War II.
There's American children saluting the flag with what the article said is the old straight arm salute. The Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag was a Nazi idea. It's called National Socialism of the Workers' Party in America. So the whole idea of saluting and pledging your allegiance, the word allegiance comes from the Latin word allege. So what you're doing is when you pledge your allege, you're pledging your body as a support for a fascist system. You are pledging. That's why when you are inducted into a fraternal order in college, they call you a pledge because you are pledging your body to become a member of the gang. You're pledging your body. So we want everybody to pledge their allege to the symbol of world fascism.
The military flag.
Yeah, military. That's right. So on the left-hand side, you'll see Hitler with all the children pledging their allege to Hitler, and on the right, you'll see the American children pledging their allege. On the right, you'll see the German Nazis. On the left, you will see the American children with the American flag pledging their allege. Yeah, the Boy Scouts of America, the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts pledging their allege, just like the Palestinians. This stuff is everywhere. The whole world is lying in the power of stupidity, ignorance, and demonic depravity. And thank God all we got going for us is TBN, Christian radio, Christian TV. Communists and Nazi posters. Hitler on one side, Stalin on the other. Same old stuff, same symbol. Nazis on the left, communists on the right, same symbols. Same symbols, always the same stuff. There's all kinds of posters from communism and Nazism. They all got the same pictures, same poses. Lost civilizations under the sea. That's a very interesting subject about all these different lost civilizations underwater. This is up the coast in the, I think it's in the, where is this?
Northern Japan?
Yeah. But anyway, you'll see all these little dots in a row. You know, what is that? I don't know what it is, but it's on the bottom of the ocean. And I would suggest that it might be interesting to find out what it is. Because it looks organized.
It doesn't look natural.
No, it does not look natural. Now here's something very interesting. This is off the coast of Africa. In the area we call
Canary Islands?
Oh no, it's off the coast of what's that country? Canary Islands. Canary Islands, which are off the coast of Africa. And incidentally, Canary Islands is not named off of a bird. It's named off of dogs in that particular island called Canaanite or Canary. dogs, and that's why they call it the Canary Islands. It's named after dogs, not a bird. But off the coast of the Canary Islands, which is off the coast of Africa in the Atlantic Ocean, from the space shuttle, they're taking pictures of the ocean floor. And what the hell is this on the ocean floor of the Atlantic Ocean? It does not look like normal something that you find on the ocean
And
floor.
there's
That looks very man-made.
ancient stone
Very
pyramids
organized.
on the islands too,
Yeah.
right?
So it could very well be Atlantis or
Aren't there-
something.
aren't there
because
stone-
obviously something was on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
And there's
Incidentally,
pyramids.
I don't know if you know this or not, but this is very interesting as far as I'm concerned, that there is a pyramid larger than Cheops pyramid in Egypt. There's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean today. It's sitting out 10 miles north of the island of Bimini in the Bahama Banks. It's called the Bahama Banks, and it's 10 miles north of the island of Bimini. Is a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top, bigger than the one that's in Egypt, sitting on the ocean floor. I don't know what that tells you.
You got a slide of that?
So here are man-made structures. I mean, but you know, how many people know about that? That there's a damn pyramid with an all-seeing eye sitting out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Didn't know that.
Right off of the island of the island of Bimini in the Bahama Banks, and nobody seems to know anything about it. I would think
It's in the
that is amazing. How did a pyramid get out there in the Atlantic Ocean? Well, it has nothing to do with football or basketball, so don't worry about it. Just go back and watch TV and don't worry about it.
Yeah, have a beer.
Yeah, have a beer and don't worry about it. And what's
Forget
this on
about
the
it.
Atlantic Ocean floor? Nobody knows. Incidentally, you've heard a lot of stuff about the Bermuda Triangle and the ships and the planes that have been missing in the Bermuda Triangle. But right over this area, off the coast of the Canary Island, off the coast of Africa, we find this contraption, or this construction on the ocean floor. But in that area, off the coast of Africa, something else like the Bermuda Triangle happens. In the Bermuda Triangle, ships and planes are lost and nobody knows where they went. But over off of the coast of Africa, something else happens. Very interesting. That ships, all kinds of ships, large ships, sailing ships, yachts, private ships, enormous amounts of ships are found, but they're all floating. They're not lost, but they have no people on them.
Right.
There's been hundreds of ships, big ships, oil tankers, big cargo ships,
Abduction.
private yachts. Ships are found in this particular area of the Atlantic in which there are no people on the ship, period. I don't know what that's all about.
Abductions.
I don't know. So, man-made structures below sea level. Underwater structures. We're finding that there's enormous amounts of structures under the oceans of the world. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to be important that there are temples all under the damn ocean. And nobody seems to ask the question, what's going on here? Because if we know that there are artifacts found in strata, which is 2.5 to 3 billion years old, then maybe some of these temples that are in the oceans of the world, and the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, they may be representing civilizations that had great temples millions of years ago.
Sargon.
I'm just saying that there's a lot of stuff on the ocean floors of the world, of our Earth, that we're not being told about. And I've heard scientists oceanographic scientists talking about what these are, and they said that this was obviously caused by currents.
Yeah.
And I would be a bit surprised if 90% of the American public said, "Oh yeah, weapons, kid." This represents construction by ancient civilizations that probably are hundreds of millions of years ago. And the pyramids of Egypt are just recent stuff. But even the Egyptians have no knowledge of the pyramids. I sat and talked with a Kamite priest for hours in Cairo, one of the oldest priesthoods in Egypt. His name was Hakim. We became very close friends, and Hakim told me, he said, in all of Egypt, the people of Egypt have no idea in the world who built the pyramids. You know, so we're famous for all of our pyramids. We don't know who the hell built them. We have no idea in the world, because nothing in the pyramids has anything Egyptian written on them at all, period. And there's nothing in our literature, nothing in the ancient Egyptian writings that talk about a pyramid. Nowhere.
They said the original finish was like a glass finish. You could see it 500 miles away from some reflections the right way.
Yep.
From above the earth, it's, but do you believe that it's the longitude and latitude homing beacon?
I think maybe something like that. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that is. But these underwater, these great temples underwater, what's this all about?
Polar ship.
Sargon.
They existed when the sea, the earth, that's what I would.
But I mean, can you grasp the concept of the idea that there may have been high civilizations on this earth hundreds of millions of years ago, if not billion years ago? You know what that implies, the implication of that?
Lovecraft was right about the ancient ones.
So, anyway. Nope. It's not important. This has got nothing to do with basketball.
I think it's good news for our future.
Yeah, because yes, I think you're right. Because it means that BS crap that's going on today, and the destruction of civilization, and the destruction of everything clean and honest and moral and dignity, that there is a higher power in the universe. And somewhere along the line, this civilization on the earth today is going to come face to face with the divine. And we're going to see something, I think, is coming. I think we're going to be facing, whoever has created us is coming back.
Sargon.
I think that very soon we're going to be faced with a world of power that we didn't even know existed in the universe. They've been hidden from us. It's called God. So whatever that God is, or whatever we're talking about, is going to be something when it shows up.
Source.
Yeah, the source.
Gardener.
So anyway, so the point I'm making is that there's a lot of stuff going on under the seas that we're not being told. So, the lost ark of the Hebrews. We heard all about the lost ark. Here it is, the lost ark, the Hebrew lost ark. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, where did Indiana Jones first go when he got the commission from the U.S. government to go find the lost ark? When the U.S. government told him, we want you to find the lost ark before Hitler does. Well, first of all, what the hell does Hitler want with a Jewish lost ark? Unless there's something going on. And so when Indiana Jones is given the job to go find the lost ark, where does he go first? The first place, because he's obviously intelligent, he knows where to look. So where does he go first? He goes to Tibet, and the Himalayan mountains of Tibet. What's all that about? So, because in Tibet, he has to find the little jewel that will show him where the lost ark is located. And then once he gets that little medallion, now he can find the lost ark. Where does he go? To the Holy Land. No, he goes to Egypt. He never did go to the Holy Land. We never saw Indiana Jones in the Holy Land at all. Why? Because there ain't nothing holy in the Holy Land. Has got nothing to do with Israel or the holy people of God. Zero, nothing. Indiana Jones. I mean, Steven Spielberg is telling you that. Indiana Jones is going to look for the lost ark. Well, you might as well, if you're going to look for the lost ark, well, for Christ's sake, go where it is. Go to Egypt. That's where it's at. It's an Egyptian symbol, not Hebrew. So here the lost ark. The actual word in the Smith's Bible Dictionary, the Bible Dictionary says ark is a word adopted from the Egyptian. So the very word ark is an Egyptian symbol. Here's another Bible Dictionary. You'll see in the Bible Dictionary, Egyptians are carrying the sacred ark. It's an Egyptian symbol. Here is ancient Egyptian priests with the golden ark of An, A-N, the name of their god. Ancient Egyptian wall painting showing the priest carrying the golden ark. This is in the wall of the temple of Ramesses II and Abydos. There you will see the Egyptians in an Egyptian temple at Abydos, chiseled into the wall, the Egyptians carrying the lost ark. That's what Steven Spielberg knew. Steven Spielberg knows a lot of things, but stupid ain't one of them. And he knows if you're going to talk about the lost ark of the Hebrews, first of all, you go to Tibet. Because if you don't understand the Hindus and the Buddhistic concepts in Tibet, then you're never going to figure out what's going on with the lost ark in Egypt, because it has a connection. Tibet is connected to Egypt in a very interesting and dark way. And so Indiana Jones goes to Tibet first, then he goes to Egypt. And all of his travels, he never went to the Holy Land at all. Why? Because the whole idea of the lost ark of the covenant is an Egyptian story. Here it is, Egyptians carrying the lost ark. Here it is again. Again, the Egyptians carrying the ark. So, the whole idea of the ark is an Egyptian symbol. Indiana Jones, you see the pyramid, he's in Egypt. He's in Egypt. Even the National Geographic had an article called The Ark of the Covenant, Many Legends with No Evidence. Again, there's the lost ark of the Hebrews. No, it's the lost ark of Egypt. The Twin Towers. You know, we're all aware of the Twin Towers, but where did the idea for Twin Towers come from? Well, in the book called Symbol, Sex, and the Stars, which I own the copyright to, we see that the most ancient concept of Twin Towers goes back to twin phallic pillars. So the Twin Towers are twin phallic pillars. So, that's where you get Twin Towers. Now, you'll see the twin phallic pillars in Africa, in ancient Africa, in Egypt. The Washington Monument is a obelisk, just like in Egypt. An obelisk was a male phallic symbol. And so in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument is an obelisk which represents the male erection. And it connects directly to the female ovaries of the Oval Office. You need to understand how this stuff really works. There's a whole story here that hasn't been told yet. About time somebody did. There you have Twin Towers, twin phallic pillars. So they're everywhere. In the Hindu, you'll see the twin phallic pillars. Babylon, twin pillars. In Rome, the twin phallic symbols. These were found in Rome. Greeks had them. Rome still has them. Here's in Egypt. Christian church always has twin towers. Twin towers in the Islamic world. This is all the same phallic sexual symbols.
Was the Empire State Building an obelisk?
Well, it could be. I think it could be considered an obelisk. You know. But the whole concept of twin towers is all over Islam. But happily, the Islamic people have never been told anything about their religion, just as Christians have never been told about theirs. So they don't know. Solomon's temple, of course, Solomon's temple had twin towers, twin phallic pillars. And you'll see the esoteric meaning of the twin pillars, twin towers in front of what they call it, Dome of the Rock. Twin Towers idea worldwide. You'll see them everywhere. This is just a collection, a small collection. Here's a Jewish synagogue in New York, Twin Towers. There's everywhere. It's just a basic concept that is expressed all over the world.
Is the
Nazis even had twin towers.
Is the Mormon tabernacle in here too?
Yeah, that's right. You'll see that too. Is there a veiled message here in the Lord of the Rings? The two towers. Two towers, yeah. The twin towers. Hollywood's telling you something. The Inca stones. Have you ever heard of the Inca stones? Stones that were found in South America, in an area that was where the Incas lived. And these stones, Dr. Lear, Roger Lear was the first one who told me about these stones, because he went down there. I got to tell you something about this Inca stone, just a minute. But these stones are found in the area of the Nazca lines, and this is Dr. I think his name is Cambreri, the doctor in South America who has collected all these stones. And you'll see all these stones in his private library. But these stones are interesting. You will see on the stones, you'll see these are ancient stones. All kinds of strange creatures on these stones. Dinosaurs. It's a dinosaur. Here's an old Inca astronomer looking up at the stars. Here is an Inca worshiping the sun.
Looks like a high-rise building.
Huh?
Looks like a high-rise building here.
Yeah. Here's another stone. You see the dinosaurs on these stones? Dinosaurs. There's another dinosaur. Oh, it's a dinosaur. Dinosaurs with men. Yeah, there's more dinosaurs here.
Maybe those fundamentalist Christians in Arkansas are right. Dinosaurs and men walk together.
Say it again?
I'm joking, sorry.
Oh. No, don't let that out.
We don't laugh here.
Anyway, I just think it's interesting. Here's a dinosaur grabbing a man. Here's a warrior, and he's doing battle with a dinosaur. I don't know what these people are trying to tell us. Now here's some guy riding a dinosaur. That's it. So the bottom line on all of this is, depending on how late it is, at 10 o'clock, the bottom line on all of this, about what I'm trying to say in this presentation, is quite simply that nothing in the world is what you think it is. Nothing. That the world is far, far different than anything you've imagined. And the real story about who we are, where the earth came from, how many civilizations have been on this earth billions of years ago, all the strange crap that we're being given in religion and government and all this stuff. There's a whole world that's been hidden from view. It's the occult world. The word occult simply means hidden. And everything that's of any real, valuable importance to the human race has been hidden. And in its place, we've been given football, basketball, silly nonsense, and television and entertainment to keep you busy. Because the powers that be on this planet know that if the people ever woke up and found out what's really going on here, they would not be in control.